I'm Lianna. I'm the founder of Freedom Property Investors. So that's what I do. We help investors actually build a portfolio of property to achieve their passive income goals, their financial freedom.
And what about you personally? What are you into? What do you do on your weekends?
One of my biggest hobbies is related to property as well. I love architecture and love interior design as well. The other thing is dancing. So we're passionate, me and my partner, we're both like really passionate about Latin dancing. So we do a fair bit of
Oh,
that. We have a small group of friends that we do like all been dancing for quite a few years. So we still have these little house parties of, 8, 9 people that it's still happening. So fortunately, we've still got that going. But otherwise, I know all the social events, they've just dead.
so you're down in Sydney, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's hitting you guys probably a bit harder than us
Yeah,
up in
it is.
Brisbane sometimes. We know what's happening, but it's definitely it feels like Melbourne and Sydney are a different world at the moment. So it's really interesting that you have this property investment and property development type um, aspect to what you do, and then on your personal side you're very creative and but both very technical. Dancing takes a lot of brain coordination. So
Yeah.
I find that really interesting. And I've been told you have a pretty interesting backstory as to how you've actually got to this point, because you're quite successful, and I believe you come from an immigrant family.
Yeah, so I came here when I was 14 with my
Mm-hmm.
mum, and my dad came here when
Yeah.
I was 7. So my mum and dad actually didn't see
Okay.
each other for 7 years. So how they actually got,
Wow.
yeah, it's, I don't know how they did it, but huge sacrifice. When my parents first got married, they were actually really poor, very humble beginnings they come
Mm-hmm.
from, and they actually didn't have anywhere to live. So my grandparents decided to take them in. And so they like sort of my grandparents' house, which is like a rickety wooden house, they just built a room on top of it. And that's where I grew up. And so like did everything together, and there was no permit, nothing like that. We just built it. And then, so yeah, so
Whereabouts was this?
this is in the southern part of China, very close to
Okay.
Taiwan. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like that for a few years. I still remember as a toddler when I was playing around in my room, I was running around in my room, the whole building would be shaking. So that was like one of my earliest memories. And I thought it was normal because,
Yeah.
like as a
Mm-hmm.
kid, you don't really experience, you don't really understand what poverty was about. And when I
No.
was 7, my parents made the decision, really tough decision for them, because they wanted to create a different financial future for our little family. So they borrowed money from
Mm-hmm.
friends and family and sent my dad out to Australia. And it was just
Wow.
7 tough, long years. They didn't see each other for 7 years. My dad used to write letters home all the time, every couple of days as well. So my mum would read them out to the family, but sometimes I'll catch her reading it to herself and just, shedding a tear. So it was really tough for
Mm-hmm.
them.
A lot of sacrifice.
Totally,
That's
totally.
actually an amazing story. I couldn't imagine many people would do that today.
Yeah, well, I can't imagine it, but like I think since our Chinese, like a part of our Chinese culture involves a lot of sacrifice, especially for the family unit, and that's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And when me and my mum we came out to Australia to be reunited with my dad, I was 14, and then we just said about that's create a big bright future for ourselves here. So I always felt like, I really need to make my parents proud, because I was the
Mm-hmm.
only child as well. So it's like all their
Yeah.
hopes and dreams were on me.
Oh my goodness. It's almost like this was all for you.
Yeah, yeah. It felt that way, and I really wanted to create just a situation where they wouldn't have to worry. I can retire them, and
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't have to worry about money ever in their retirement. They've got decades long to enjoy their retirement. So that was always been one of my biggest motivations to get on this path, I suppose. So I was always searching for a
Yeah.
way to achieve that financial freedom as quickly as possible.
Okay. So what's happened between the age of 14 and arriving in Australia? obviously having these aspirations develop over time to where you are today. What's like, how did that path happen? I'm sure you did it just fall into your lap and you
No.
just happened to be doing this, or was it strategic?
It kind of was and wasn't. It was, my goal was always there, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. I never like didn't know. But the first thing I've been taught by my parents, you got to work hard and study hard and just and save as much as you could, and that's all I knew. So that's kind of what I did. As a kid,
Yeah.
I was always studying, and then I graduated from high school here with a UAI score close to 100, which meant that I could choose any degree I wanted. So I went to see my career
Yeah.
advisor and I asked her, what can I do? Like, I was really good at math, what can I do with it? And she said, well, why don't you try out actuarial science, which has a lot to do with data, with statistics and that sort of stuff. So, and I thought I'll give it a crack. I had no idea what it was about. And I just stuck with it for about 6 to 7 years and qualified as an actuary. But I had no idea how hard it was. And I could see all my classmates that are enrolled. About every 10 people that I know, only one person actually stuck to the end, become a qualified actuary.
Okay.
It was a bit of a tough journey. But then that meant that
Wow.
we actually do. This is how I sort of open up the opportunity for me to eventually expose me to this whole world of investment and specifically property investment, because that's what actuaries do. Actually, we analyze and study lots of different asset classes and how they perform, and also we work for insurance major banks and insurance companies. So I work for Suncorp, QBE, NRMA, all those sort of companies, and we built models. We analyze all the past data, understand the trends and patterns in the data, and we use that to build models that will predict the future. And that was my day job. And a lot of, like if you see reports come out of banks talking about where the property market is going, where the economy is going, a lot of that would have had input from people like us, like actuaries or data scientists. And so that was my background, and I just thought to myself, well, I have got all these skills, and I couldn't really see that even though I was doing really well career-wise, I was getting six-figure income pretty quickly, and then I still couldn't see a way to set myself up and set my parents up in a short space of time. So I knew that I had to, like, we all know you can't save your way to financial freedom, and super isn't going to do it either. So I had to find another way to do it. So I just looked at all the asset classes, and I realized that property was the way to do it, and you can actually do it quite safely and fast as well. So that's how I got onto property. And because I knew how to predict, build pricing models and predict forecasting models, for example, so I just applied the same skill set to property.
Yeah.
And that's how I got started.
And do you think even, sorry to interrupt, I'm just kind of thinking of while you're saying, you've obviously got the numbers, you have the data, you obviously very much believe in property. Even in this time, during a pandemic / recession, do you think that it's still a safe and the best asset class based
Absolutely.
on your data and
It's
your
actually
numbers?
it's actually interesting that you say that. A lot of people ask us the same question. So if you study, when you look at the data historically, and this is always true, happens every single time, and not just in Australia but around the world as well, a property boom always follows an economic shock. Whenever there's an economic shock, I bet you in the 12 months after that economic shock, there is a property boom. So it happened time and time again. And I actually got myself started investing in property in the GFC. And that was the best buying opportunity ever. This is probably the second best buying opportunity, if not the best buying opportunity that we had in the last 12 years since the GFC. During the GFC, people were too scared. There was so much fear mongering in the media. It was far worse than what it is today. In terms of, the media, how they were saying property market was going to crash here in Australia and all that sort of stuff. It didn't. It had a tiny bit of a correction. Was only about 5% correction, and then it grew about 20% the following year. And I negotiated discounts. Yeah, it's like it was a great time to be buying because it was a buyer's market. You could get discounts on things, so I did that with my first property. And then within 12 months, I bought it for about 400 grand, and within 12 months, I revalued that to 500 grand. So for a beginner investor, that was a huge boost for me. But like it took a lot of guts to do that. A lot of people were telling me, you're crazy to be buying property right now. Well-meaning advice. But if you were looking at the history, the data, you can see that very obvious signs that like there's a big pickup straight after every economic shock. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to know if there's a theory or an actual proven reason why once there is a shock that there is such growth. Like why?
There are a lot of factors. So like the earliest evidence I found was actually the Spanish flu, which was probably the biggest, the best comparable pandemic that you can sort of compare this one with. And during the Spanish flu, I mean, I think about 20, 30 million people lost their lives, unfortunately. But straight after, the borders reopened and we had heaps of immigration coming through. And then straight after that, we had a massive property growth spurt as well. So that's one reason, immigration. And the other reason is usually government stimulus. So a lot of government stimulus around this kind of time, usually they target infrastructure, they target construction. So a lot of that money flows into infrastructure, construction industry, which creates jobs, which then flows on, and there's population from, in terms of immigration numbers, so population growth will pick up quite significantly as well. So a combination of those reasons to help these are the strategies that can help the economy recover the fastest, in the quickest way possible.
Just proven.
Yeah, and government tend to just use that every single time.
And they're definitely doing it at the moment, aren't they?
They are.
Definitely a lot more money into infrastructure and I guess putting money into housing.
Absolutely. So like the government just approved, I think, $65 billion of shovel-ready projects the other day. And that's on top of, I think they already injected something around $400 billion of stimulus into the economy. So if anything that's unprecedented this time around as compared to all the other times, it's the amount of stimulus they are putting into the economy. So during the GFC, I counted, they spent about $10 billion on our economy. This time around, it's $400 billion. It's 40 times. So the impact, if anything, to our construction industry and all sectors of the business. Of course, some sectors will have much more longer term impact, like they're gonna feel it for a lot longer, like the tourism industry or the airline industry, for example. But a lot of other sectors are going to rebound much quicker. And construction is certainly an industry that's really thriving now.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's really, I love that. That's really good, useful information. It definitely counters a lot of the fear mongering about the industry. And obviously, as I said, in Queensland ourselves, we're not feeling much of a drop at this point. Everyone's quite busy. I'm not sure about the southern states, but it sounds like it's still all going, all systems go.
Because we have a massive shortage of supply of new construction. It's been sort of in decline since 2018, like 2 or 3 years now.
Okay.
Because, I think it was partly due to APRA putting in all these lending restrictions. So it's really sort of discouraged developers from building any new stuff because it's really difficult to get finance. And then suddenly we have this whole home builder grant incentives, all these incentives coming through, and we have a lot more people going out there just trying to buy something so that they can get all the incentives and grants they qualified to get, and then there's not enough property on the market, and especially for new housing, that's the problem. That's every single state has that problem. Like in Sydney, we basically have like a drought of new properties. And in Melbourne, it's a similar thing. And in Brisbane, I know it is because finding anything that is land that is ready to build on is just about impossible in Brisbane right now.
Yeah, no. You go look for even just realestate.com, look for vacant land.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much you might find 3 places.
Yeah.
And there's probably something wrong with those ones. No offense if you have a property on there, but it definitely is, they tend to be the problem sites.
Yeah.
They just go like this. I'm just wondering if there is a lot more this time around. People aren't as fearful of buying and selling property because of what's happened during GFC, and a lot more education, I guess, from people like yourself who say, hey, traditionally this is what happens, don't be worried. And so this time we probably won't see as much of a drop because people are still willing to take the risk based on, I guess, the data.
Yeah, I agree with you actually. Our membership has exploded during COVID-19. Funnily enough, we've had over literally probably over 1,000 members sign up in just the last 2 or 3 months, which has been massive. And I think a lot more people are a lot more aware now. They have the filter on when they listen to the media. They don't always just take it. They take it with a grain of salt, which is great.
Yeah.
And you know, like somebody did a survey. I heard about this on the media the other day. Somebody did a survey of just around the world how people perceive this to be, and we've done really well. Australia as a country, we've done really well in terms of controlling the outbreak, in terms of our numbers and stuff like that, compared to the rest of the world. But interestingly, we actually have the highest level of panic, like from the media. The media likes to give the highest amount of, uncertainty, panic. Just the wording they use is quite extreme.
Do you think because we have, somewhat contained this pandemic will drive even additional immigration once borders things open up?
Absolutely.
More so than maybe prior?
You're spot on.
Yeah.
It happened after the GFC as well, because we didn't actually go through a recession and we're the fastest to recover, and everybody around the world was taking notice and go, oh, Australia is a great place to live, like economically. But this time around, they will also feel that it's just a much safer place to be because of our geographic isolation, So I think you're definitely right about that. Look, our major cities are already on the top of the most livable cities in the world, like all our major cities are. So after this, I think if anything, it's going to be perceived to be much more desirable. So yeah, absolutely. We need a lot more optimism, in this time. So yeah, people are just we all need that. We all need hope and being optimistic about the outcome. And I think a solution is going to be found sooner or later. Like there's a lot of countries already doing human trials for the vaccine. Yeah.
I'm sure it'll all work out. It'll just be a matter of time. So getting back to you and your career, what is your favorite part about what you do?
There's lots of parts. I'm actually huge. I'm quite passionate about architecture and about trends and things like that. So naturally, I get myself really involved in the design process. I really enjoy doing that. And just looking at things that what is trending now, say for example, sustainability is something that is probably going to be a bigger thing that people are going to be more and more aware of it as well. Even if people are looking at it as a investment vehicle, I think that's going to be more trending in the future as well. And there's other aspects, like one of the things I was we put into place is because of COVID, a lot more people in the future, I believe, are going to be working from home or wanting to work from home part of the week. And so like having a study in any sort of housing configuration is going to become more and more important. So that's something that we're factoring right now in all the constructions, that, like all of the designs that we have. Yeah, so yeah, things like that. I think that's a lot of fun. And the other side of things is obviously negotiation. So like with the research that my research team does, we look at, we have a very strict selection criteria based on basically like a pricing model that we built. So we know which factors to look for that will drive the property market, a specific property market, and we'll drill down from the whole country down to regions and then sub-regions and then individual suburbs. So then I often will go to the negotiation table knowing more about the area and how much things would be priced at than the developers, for example. So that gives us a lot of power. And I enjoy that negotiation process. It's a very patient, you've got to be very patient about it. Sometimes it takes 6 months or 9 months to get to a outcome, like a price that you're happy with. But we got the luxury of time, because if I don't get the deal I like, I just walk off and go to another deal, right? So that's the I find that very enjoyable.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to be negotiating against you. I think you'd beat me.
It's a lot of it can be a lot of fun, and when you know that you got the outcome that you wanted, it's just that feeling it feels great. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Well, I've enjoyed so much of this interview. You've given such great information, Lianna. If people want to contact you or your business, what's the best way to do that?
We have our Facebook page, so Freedom Property Investors. You can look that up. And also we have, there's my LinkedIn page as well. I've got a personal Facebook page. You can also look up my business partner, Scott Kuru. He's got a Facebook page as well. Obviously our Freedom Property Investors website as well. So if you just type that in, you're going to find all these links to it. Yeah.
Yes, we'll put it all the handles in the show notes.
Great.
As well. Well, thank you once again for your time today.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.